Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy So in case you ain't know so, and welcome back to another dope episode of Sports with So coming to you live, y'all. This week, we got the Heat and the Panthers wrapping up both games on the road, heading back home to take care of business in game 3 and 4. The Marlins continue to roar on lesser opponents as they get above 500. And we got big news in the world of golf with the PGA and LIV Tour merger. It's time to take a ride, y'all. Let's go. What it do, baby? What's going on, Joel?
Yeah. Not much, bro. In the middle of Central Florida in a hotel somewhere. You know, racking up loyalty points.
You look so comfortable in a
hotel.
Well,
you know, I got this special chair. You know, I got requested this special chair specifically for the podcast. They were kind enough to oblige. They brought this in, I think, from Persia.
Nice.
This little love seat. You know, so I'm enjoying myself. How are you? So you look good. I like that hat.
Appreciate you, my boy. I got it at the Miami Golf Pros Open 2023. You know, got that new logo on there. Make sure you guys are following, showing some love and support for the homie. You know.
I might have to do another run, bro. Of those hats. I had a few people hit me up and tell me that they were feeling it. So I might have to do another run. Maybe you guys out there, let us know. Drop it in the comments if you like one of those Miami Golf Pros hats. Maybe I'll do another run of them.
With this little rope lining right here, nah. Y'all don't know the quality that my boy put into this hat, man. So it's definitely worth it. So make sure to drop a comment. Man, let's get started here, Joel. We're gonna open things up with the Heat. Right now they're tied 1-1 against the Denver Nuggets. Lost game 1, 104-93 on last Thursday. And while it was an ugly game, my main takeaway from that game 1 was that we were in it. You know, the score may seem like we weren't in it, but we were in it because we were getting good possessions. We were getting good open shots. We were getting good looks, and nothing was falling down for the Heat that day, dog.
No, the way we played that game, we should have been down by damn near 30. You know, the fact that we only lost, I think it might have been 10 or what was the final spread?
104-93, so 11 points there.
11 points, you know, that should have been a 30-point game the way that the Heat played, you know, and the shots that weren't falling. And on the other end, if the shots fall that night, we beat them, you know, by 10 instead of losing by 11. You know what I mean? You had a really cold night from Max Strus and company. 3-point shooting wasn't there. Jimmy, you know, was kind of absent. We only had 2 free throws on the night. You know, it just wasn't really, you know, the Heat playoff form that we've seen this year.
For sure. And I think Jimmy's, you know, lack of aggression in that game when it came to putting up shots in certain areas, mostly in the paint, was due to the size that Denver does have a lot of size out there, right? And it's gonna take an effect throughout this series. We just didn't think it would be that big of an effect, you know. And yeah, his 13 points was definitely, you know, lackluster. Bam really stepped it up. He had 26 points, balled out. That game was very effective with his shooting. But those 2 free throws being the only free throws that we got, we set an NBA's finals record for being the lowest amount of free throws in the game. It's like, that's not Heat basketball, you know? And I think a lot of that had to do with how we approached guarding Joker, right? We were doubling him early and often, and then he was just burning us with our passing. I think he had like 10 assists in the first half, ended up with a triple-double, 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 14 assists. Just too much damage to overcome, too many easy points to overcome. And we were all curious to see like how the adjustment was going to be done, right, for this next game in game 2. And in game 2, we saw a big difference, right? First and foremost, we saw the lineup change. We know that Caleb wasn't feeling that great. We saw Kevin Love get back into the starting lineup, and it had a big effect because it was another big body that we could throw at a guy like Aaron Gordon, Caldwell Pope, all those guys, right, who have some type of size and length. And we just saw an immediate change, and he went out there and played really good. Got ahead in the first quarter. Next 2 quarters were a little bit of a rough patch offensively. Third quarter, Joker lit us up for 18 points, and then something happened magically in the fourth quarter. The Heat overcome that double-digit lead yet again, 4th win now in the playoffs, most in a playoffs run by any team in any NBA history, overcoming 8 points or more as a deficit to come back and win the game. And the Heat won that game 111-108. And it was on the strength of making clutch plays down the stretch. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I mean, you talk about a clutch stretch in the fourth quarter, you got to talk about Duncan Robinson with 10 points to lead the Heat in the fourth quarter. I mean, I don't know what he did in between the third and the fourth, but, he needs to keep doing that moving forward.
I think it's just his aggressiveness, right? We've seen him not settle for just a 3. And once, if the defense does take away the 3 on the pick and roll, whatever, he's becoming a much better passer, number 1, right? We've seen him make some really good passes. And number 2, he's becoming more offensively aware, right? Where he's hitting backdoor cuts and getting to the rim, right? Nice and easy, or finding another cutting player and giving them an assist for an easy bucket. His role has definitely changed. He's just not a 3-point shooter now, and that shit makes a big difference. Lost you there for a second. It makes a big difference. And for me, another guy who has been making a big difference, and this guy's probably going to get some cash at the end of the season, is Gabe Vincent. He went off, man. 23 points, 4 or 6 from 3. Bam had another 20-point game, had 9 rebounds and 4 assists. And when we look at the Heat lineup, Joel, dog, we've always said it, man. Once you get some type of contribution from anybody else named not Jimmy, the Heat are always in a better position to win the game. And we saw this whole team effort, especially in the fourth quarter. Jimmy didn't have a great, offensive game. Ended up with, I think it was 21 points. But he was super clutch in the final moments of the game, right? He had that big rebound off of his miss that he found Caleb. Caleb was able to hit a 3 and keep our lead. And after talking to Jaime on the recap, shout out to Jaime Gutierrez. Make sure you guys are following him on Instagram. He was able to join us on the Heat post game show, and he said it. Gabe, all these guys, they feed off of Jimmy, and Jimmy always makes winning plays, and those were one of the winning plays that we saw that night.
Yeah, no, Jimmy's always going to be pivotal, and when he's not up to Jimmy's standards, that's when we suffer. Like in game 1, right? The fact that we only got to the free throw line twice, that because mainly Jimmy is our player that's going to get us to the line, and he wasn't doing that. We saw that change up in game 2, and early on he was drawing fouls, getting to the line. Yeah, he didn't have the phenomenal offensive performance that he had in the early parts of the postseason. But you got to look at everything he's doing around the ball, opening up plays for his teammates, making plays, getting the ball where it needs to be, like you alluded to with Caleb in the corner. But then also what he's doing on defense, locking down Jamal Murray. I mean, Jamal Murray is a machine. Everybody talks about Jokic, but Jamal Murray's a talented ball player, man. He can shoot, he can pass, he can get to the rim, he can draw the foul. Like he has a lot of good attributes to him, and Jimmy locking him down, taking him away, means that we really just got to worry about Jokic. I mean, granted, they have size, we talked about it already with Aaron Gordon. We can't let that get away, and Michael Porter Jr. and these guys. But the two-headed monster there is really Jokic and Murray. And with him locking down Murray, that leaves Bam to at least stop the immovable object that is Jokic. You know what I mean? And Jokic, he still put up 30 points in that game too.
41.
He's going to do 41, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, so he did get over the 44 mark. Look at that. Like he got 41, and that's fine as long as we're able to contain the other pieces around. And that's where Bam has been able to step up, man. I got to give a huge shout out to Bam because I know that, I'm usually harsh on him a lot of times because of the fact that he doesn't play up to my expectation of where I think he should be playing to. But game 1 and 2, I think Bam has stepped it up. I think he's playing, at a really high performing level right now. And if we get that continuous performance out of Bam, I think we're looking pretty good in this series.
Hell yeah. You mentioned something, his defense on Joker is really underappreciated so far these first two games, right? Because Joker went off for 41 points, but he made a lot of tough shots. He made a lot of like crazy, I'm rushing the rim and I'm just getting it off, throwing it up and hoping something good's happen. And those, when you're on and you got that soft touch like Joker does, he's gonna make a lot of those. But for Bam to really limit his other options, Joker only ended up with 4 assists. In the first game, he had 14. We're talking about a 10-point difference there. You know what I mean?
That's huge, man. I mean, that's where the numbers are going to pick up, because he drops off an assist because he has to do more offensive production. And if that's the case, I'd rather that be the case. Let him score as much as he wants, as long as we're containing everybody else around him.
And that was my key to this whole series, right? Like I said it earlier.
Absolutely was.
Like we can't double Joker so early and often, because then it just makes it so much easier for everybody else to contribute. Nobody else in game 2, except for Joker, had more than 20 points or more than 18 points, which was Jamal Murray. Nobody else contributed. And that's the Heat stifling the other options that he has and saying, no, you know what? You have to hit all the shots and have to take all the shots, like kind of like Bam did in game 1. Now we force Joker to do that. And that was a great adjustment by Spo. He went out there and put Jimmy on Murray, right? So it kind of takes away a little bit from Jimmy on the offensive side. But if we're gonna have our other guys step up, right, like Gabe, Lowry, Duncan, even Caleb, Kevin Love hitting shots, if we're gonna have these guys contributing offensively, then that's gonna make up for whatever we miss from Jimmy playing more defense. And that's part of the adjustments that we're gonna have to see in game 3, right, which is happening tonight by the time you guys are watching this. On Wednesday, we're going to have to see Spo continue to make those adjustments and figure out how he can continue to limit Joker's availability in the paint. We saw him go to the zone a lot, which was definitely working for the Heat, whether it's the 2-3 zone or the 1-2-2 zone. Like, it's giving Denver a lot of issues because they don't know how to game plan for it. They don't know what to expect and when to expect it. And that's just something that Coach Spo is a master at. Now, we heard today that Hero has been declared out so far. Again, this is Tuesday while we're recording, so a lot can change before game 3, but you kind of feel good about us holding Hero back if the series is tied 1-1, right? I don't think you have to rush him back so quickly because I don't think we're that desperate for scoring. What do you think?
Yes and no. So my 2 cents on this is the fact that it's predicated on just the headline that I'm reading, right? And part of it said that Tyler Hero himself doesn't feel comfortable yet to come back.
Correct.
And maybe the
he still has some discomfort when he's releasing the ball after shooting it.
The team, it was nearing him being cleared, which means you're almost there. None of your teammates are 100%, my guy. I get it. You broke a hand. It is what it is. It sucks. But if you're 50%, suit up. I don't want you out there in those ridiculous outfits. I want you on the bench in your jersey and your uniform, ready to get in there if we need you to, bro. If you're 50%, if you can walk, you got your legs under you, I'd rather you be sitting on that bench in a Heat jersey, not wearing a fluffy, furry bucket hat.
I get you. But you got to remember also that he can suit up, right? But if he suits up, then he's going to want to play. And if he goes out there and he plays and he's 50%, that's not good, man, because you're talking about a guy who has some defensive liabilities playing 50% out there, and that shit could hurt him, right? Now, if we're talking about him being 75% and he just doesn't have the conditioning and there's nothing hurting him on his hand, then go out there and burn your lungs out, right? I think we have to be careful. We have to be careful with the Tyler Hero shit because, like I said, we're in a good position where we don't necessarily need him back that bad. But obviously, we know what type of plus he would bring to the bench, right? That's going to be a big question for Spo. And who, if he does bring Hero back, right? Whose minutes do you give him? Are you taking more minutes from Strus? Are you taking more minutes from Duncan? Are you taking more minutes from Gabe Vincent? You know what I mean? Like, these are guys who have been contributing often, right, in this playoff run. Now to kind of throw that little chemistry in there, it could be potentially offsetting, And I just think that Spo is going to find the right timing to throw Hero in there. Now, if I hear that, hey, you know what, Hero went through shoot around this morning, doesn't really feel the pain. He can take the shot to kind of get it away or whatever. Cool, bring him back, because that it'll just be a positive impact having him on the bench and just being an option, even if he doesn't get in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand, those concerns people have with, we're gelling right now. We're playing well without him. We've been winning without him. Why disrupt that? Well, I mean, we're talking about 6th man of the year here. We're talking about a 20-point scorer for the Heat, a top 3 scorer for the Heat over the past 3 seasons. I mean, there's value there, guys. So we need to make sure, number one, player health and safety is most important above all. But again, if you got medical professionals that are clearing you and saying, hey, you're good to resume basketball activity, and you're still kind of wincing a little bit, and this is the finals we're talking about. We're not talking about, the first round of the playoffs. We're talking about the NBA finals against a powerhouse that is the Denver Nuggets. We need as much help as we can get. And you talk about, where are those minutes coming from? I think there's plenty of minutes to go around, frankly. We're only rotating 8 guys in some of these games. We can use more guys on the bench, is all I'm saying, and I'm tired of seeing those stupid outfits. That's probably why I'm so adamant about this. I'm
For sure.
I'm with Van Gundy. I'm tired of seeing Tyler Hero dressed like a clown on the bench, dog.
Dog, his fashion choice is a little bit weird. We got to get that guy to Empire Boutique so he can drip up. You know what I'm saying?
Great plug.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to them sponsoring the Heat post game show. Let's see. The Tyler Hero effect is definitely one that can make a big difference for the Heat. Let's see how it works out in Game 3 tonight. But something that I wanted to touch on was, we really have to make our strongest effort to win both games here in Miami. I know that it starts with Game 3 and making sure that, Jimmy's in the right state of mind with the things happening with his dad. Bam continues to be aggressive. We got Kyle Lowry in a good rhythm, Duncan in a good rhythm. Caleb, get him healthy. Kevin Love, he stepped in. Just kind of keep that chemistry going. Go in there, protect home court, and take both of those games at home. And then that way we feel less pressure in Game 5 and Game 6, because if we do win these next 2 games at home, dog, I really feel like it's nights out for Denver, because I can't see them winning 3 straight games like that. Especially with the lack of experience they're showing. One thing that stood out to me in Game 2, right, because it was a little bit more contested, or a lot tighter when it came to defending. Denver was complaining a lot about foul calls and this and that, and the Heat were just getting on it. Oh, the call went our way, great. The call didn't go our way, great. Everybody else that's a Heat nation, right, was going crazy with the calls, but those dudes kept the same energy, and you can tell that it didn't bother them. For Denver, on the other hand, you saw them get a little, I don't want to say bitchy, but that's exactly what they were doing. They were bitching and complaining, and it kind of had an effect on their team.
No, absolutely, man. I mean, if you're watching that game as a Heat fan, you're shouting out all the fouls that they missed, and then you're also looking at it like, all right, bro, that was a makeup call. You know what I mean? Like, I hate when that happens. They miss a pure call, and then they do a makeup call, and that's one of the most frustrating things to watch as a fan. But never say never. I know where you were going with that. As far as if we win these next 2, it's hard to imagine Denver climb out of that hole. We around the goal, we had the Boston Celtics against the ropes, and we had to take it all the way to Game 7 to close it out. This team is much better than the Boston Celtic team that we faced, so we got to give them their respect. But this is the last thing I will say. This is the one thing that I learned from Game 2 of this series, and it's that the Miami Heat can win in Denver. That was the question. That was the narrative going into this series: is the altitude, can the Heat handle it? Short time, no rest. Denver's off. Who's better off? We just proved that we can win there. So this series is probably going to go to 7. I would love for us to take these next 2 at home. Chances are we probably split. They're a good enough team where we split, but I have full faith and confidence going down to a Game 7 in the series, knowing the Miami Heat can win in Denver.
For sure. And, you talk about winning in Denver. Denver was undefeated at home in the playoffs, and we just broke that. They were on a 7-game winning streak. We broke that too. Like, it felt like we broke a lot of their spirit in those aspects, and when the Heat are shooting 40% from 3 in these 2 games, you feel confident in how the Heat's ability to score can continue. You got guys like Gabe shooting 56% from 3, Jimmy 43, Lowry 55, Duncan 33. These are guys who are shooters contributing to the shooting night in, night out so far in these games in the finals. And, we have to shout out Bam, man, averaging 23.5 points, 11 rebounds, 4.5 assists. Gabe Vincent's averaging 21 points and 4 assists on 57% shooting. Like, This is all while Jimmy is quote unquote struggling on offense with averaging 17 points, but he's also averaging 5.5 rebounds and more importantly, 8 assists. So this dude is obviously doing something right here, and it's definitely helping us, man. Low key, you got Kevin Love averaging 10 rebounds in 2 games. You know what I mean? Like, again, we always find a way to get a contribution from somebody that we weren't expecting it from in that game, and then having that propel us forward.
You want me to go even deeper with a shout out, man? Another shout out we can give Haywood Highsmith. Big minutes for the kid in these NBA finals, man. Big minutes for him.
Yeah, bro. And it's like you alluded to, you know, Spo has so many options that he can go to. He has so many options that he can call on a guy and say, hey, I need this. Let me bring in the best piece to get the best outcome. It's what makes him the best coach in the NBA, in my opinion. And I think that's what kind of gives us an edge in this series as well. We may not have the best player. We may not have the second best player, but we definitely have the best coach, and we definitely have a team who has enough experience, has enough heartbreak as far as losing in the NBA Finals to not want to go through that again. So yeah, these next 2 games, Wednesday, and then the Friday, again, Game 4. It's going to be very interesting before we go back to Denver in Game 5 on Monday, and then if needed, Game 6 is on Thursday. Let's see. Yeah, man. Prediction? You think they're splitting, or you think they're going 1-1 here?
I'm gonna. No, you're fine. I think, man. Obviously, the delusional Heat fan in me says, you know, we're gonna win both of these at home here with this momentum. But you know, I got to give Denver their respect, man, and you know, I got to give credit where it's due. And I think we will ultimately split because I think this series goes 7 games.
I kind of have to agree with you there, dog. Common sense says that it's gonna go 7, but I don't know, man. This team's 3-point shooting ability has not wavered, right? Because even in that game we lost, we still hit some big shots in the fourth quarter to make Denver really uncomfortable in Game 1. And then obviously in Game 4, we came out and had a fucking hell of I think it was like a 13-point run to start the fourth quarter. We were 9 of 10 from the field. Like, this team can catch fire quickly, and when they do, Denver doesn't seem like they have an answer. So let's see. Maybe it's 6 games, maybe it's 7. But what I do know is that your boy Soso is going to bring you every single ounce of coverage from this game and this series as it goes on the post-game recap. We're going to have more special guests joining us. Shout out to Rax. Shout out to Jaime. Yeah, man. Shout out to Empire Boutique. We're making it happen with this Heat postseason run. Now, let's get into the other team that's playing in the finals right now. That's our Florida Panthers. They're down 0-2 in their series against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And you know, Saturday was a little bit of a shocker, right? Because they lost 5-2. And I felt like the Panthers were playing too dirty. You know, like every time there was a stop and play and the whistle blew, you know, you saw all that little extra, right? Where like guys are pushing each other or punching each other in the face and grabbing each other by the neck and grabbing jerseys. And it was just too much for me. I felt like they were trying to dirty up the game too much, which is crazy because the Panthers went up first, right? They scored first in that game, and they had been 8-0 or 7-0 when going. They were 8-0 going into these playoffs when scoring first. So it was like, all right, we got the first goal. Let's see how this goes. And then I just think the dirty tactics took them too far down the wrong path. They had 11 penalties, gave up 7 power play chances. 2 goals were given up in those power play chances. And it got to a point where even Matthew Tkachuk, you know, got kicked out with about 4 minutes left because of the dirtiness that these guys were playing with.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say it's out of character for these Florida Panthers, but I don't know. I haven't seen us play the way we played in that, you know, the first game against Vegas, man. And something you didn't mention was that first goal that we went up on them was actually a shorthanded goal. You know, it was on their power play that we scored to start the game. So imagine, you know, as a Panthers fan, we scored shorty to start the game 10 minutes in. I mean, we're on top of the world at that point. We're thinking we're running away with this. Right. And then they come back and they score a goal to tie it up, and then they go up on us. And then what do the Panthers do? Well, we claw back and we tie it back up. So it's a game for a little bit there. And then they end up just running away with it at the end. I think they had a couple empty netters towards the end too, which is why you have that 5-2 score on that first one. But yeah, I agree, man. It was a little bit strange to see, how dirty they were trying to take it in that first game against the Knights.
Yeah, and more importantly, the clutch plays as far as the goalie saves were made by their goalie, Aiden Hill. He had 33 saves, and he had 2 important saves. One on Nick Cousins, who was literally right in front of the goal, had his stick right on the puck, right in front of it, and Aiden was able to make the save. It really changed the momentum for the rest of the game, and the Panthers were never able to get it back. So they lose game 1, 5-2, and then we're thinking, all right, Monday they're already fresh. They kind of got back into the rhythm. Now they've already experienced the game. Let's see how they go down, and approach this game. And from the get-go, it was just zero energy, zero conviction, zero anything that resembles Panthers hockey, as they went out 2-0 in the first, and then we're down 4-0 by the time the second period even ended.
It was a bloodbath.
Yeah, it was 7-2. It was 7-2 by the time the game was over, dog.
It was a bloodbath, dog. It got ugly fast. I mean, Big Bob has been the savior of these postseason playoffs for the Panthers. And, unfortunately, when it rains, it pours. And that game 1 was a tough one for him to swallow. And then game 2, we're expecting a bounce back. And they shoved 4 straight down his throat, man. And they end up pulling Big Bob out of there. We have to bring in this other kid. What's his name? Lion. But we got kind of exposed, man. We saw, I think someone told me this, that Big Bob got exposed with that high puck entry coming into the net. He's a menace when it comes to anything below the knee and down low, but anything that's coming up shoulder height is a little bit harder for him. And we look at the goals these guys are scoring, that's kind of where they're exploiting him. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen now moving forward when we come back home, for games 3 and 4. Is Big Bob going to make the start? How do we make that adjustment?
Yeah, that's one of the big questions that Coach Paul Maurice has to figure out, right? Because a very uncharacteristic 8 goals in 2 games that Big Bob has allowed. He got pulled in the second period, with about 7 minutes left. And that was the 5th time in 12 games that Vegas does that, right? Where they have a goalie pulled in the second period before they even make it to the third, And it was just an uncharacteristic game, across the ice for the Panthers, again, back up with the penalty minutes, 84 penalty minutes, right? Zero disciplines, a lot of dirty moves, a lot of, stupid shit that got them penalties when they're putting themselves at a disadvantage. And when you're playing for the Stanley Cup Finals, you can't put yourself at a disadvantage by causing penalties on yourself. It's okay if you hit somebody and it's a check or something like that. It's whatever, but when you're doing the dirty stuff after the play to get yourself penalties, that shit kills any type of momentum that you can build, and the Panthers just lost it, man. For me, Panthers hockey is always the best when they're controlling the neutral ice, controlling the hits in the game, right? We have 2 guys, in Gudas and Verhaeghe, who are leading the NHL playoffs right now with the amount of hits that they've given out. But it needs to be calculated. It can't be just wild and free, and I feel like the Panthers were playing way too loose with it. And that's why they're down, 2-0 here in this Stanley Cup Finals before they head home on Thursday to play again. Now, like I said, how does Paul Maurice get the momentum back in this series? How do you get Keith Tkachuk going again? How do you get Verhaeghe going again, right? And get these guys in opportunities where they can finish and score and, continue to put the pressure on the Las Vegas Knights. The Panthers seem to be the team that has lost their composure. Golden Knights are keeping their composure, and that's been very telling throughout this playoff run. Now, game 3, like I said, is on Thursday. It's going to be a huge game, right? Because obviously you lose that game, you go down 3-0, looking rough to make that 4 straight comeback victory, right?
I mean, at this point, your back's against the wall. This is do or die, win or go home. So this is absolutely a must-win game for the Panthers coming up in game 3. It's just, I mean, I got, for me, it's hard to see this team, that what they've done in this postseason. Bouncing the 1 seed Bruins in 7 games after their backs were against the wall, 3-1. And then sweeping their last round rival in the Leafs, right? I'm sorry, into Carolina, the Hurricanes. They swept them. And, now it's got me thinking, all right, one, was it too long of a layoff? Did they take too long off? They got out of their form or whatever. Did they need to kind of extend that just to kind of stay hot, stay warm? But then also number two is like, what happened to the psyche in that locker room after that series? When you sweep a team in the playoffs, like, do you go from thinking like, we still got to earn everything to like, oh, we got this in the bag. Like this is a, a walk in the park. Like we're owed everything. You know what I mean? So if that's the case, then yeah, Mitchell needs to get everybody on the same page. He needs to get that locker room back.
Yeah, Coach Maurice needs to figure something out before this game 3. And, you mentioned it, this is something that we saw them, how it hurts them, right? The struggles with power plays, 0 for 7 so far in power play opportunities. We've given up 12 goals in 2 games, another very uncharacteristic stat. And, when you're averaging only 2 goals per game, you got to find ways to get it done on defense, right? A lot of the run was predicated on the Panthers being the better defensive team. Big Bob stepping up and making a lot of saves, and using that to transition into our offense and getting breakaways or getting 3-on-2s, 4-on-3s. Panthers have to find a way to get back to that rhythm. Now, I think they can because they do have a lot of experience on this team, right? And they have a lot of guys who are very grounded, right? Not a lot of egos and stuff like that when it comes to this Panthers team. But, not having any goals in 7 chances on power plays, that's stuff that we saw last year. And when we saw that last year, we saw how much it hurt them and how quickly it got them out of the playoffs, right? At this point, at this stage, Stanley Cup Finals, you can't afford that. You got to find a way to protect the puck. You got to find a way to limit the dumb penalties and take the most of your chances when they're presented to you. Let's see what happens. I'm expecting the Panthers to win game 3 without a doubt, right? Being at home, the crowd is going to be on fire. We know it's a sellout already, both games. So the energy is definitely going to be in the building. We just need the players to match that energy, right? Come out strong, put up a couple of goals early, be up, 2-0, 2-1 heading into the second period or early in the second period and finish the game out that way, stretch the game out that way where you're playing your style and not Las Vegas style. Because if we try to play that physical style that Las Vegas is known for, I don't think we can match up like that. We have to play our game and bring it back to that. Like I said, Thursday, game 3, and then we have game 4 on Saturday, both games at 8 p.m. or 8:20. That's when the puck drops after the national anthem. And then the rest of the schedule goes like this. We have game 5 on Tuesday and then game 6 on Friday, and then game 7, if needed, on Monday. So hopefully the Panthers get us there so we can continue to talk about those guys in a good light and energy here on the Sports with Soso podcast. Bro, let's talk about the Marlins for a second, because these guys have really turned the page, it seems, right? Everything is clicking for them offensively. Still don't have the greatest of pitching, but as far as the offense goes, which is something that you and I really didn't anticipate, the offense has really been blowing up. Besides the guy that we knew was going to do good in Jazz, right, who hasn't been playing, Reyes playing well, right? And what we didn't expect is like the Jorge Solers, the Coopers, the rest of these guys to come, Brian De La Cruz, so like all these guys to come out and contribute so early and often this season. But that's what we've had now, man. And the Marlins, have won 4 games in a row. They're coming off a sweep of the worst team in baseball in the Oakland A's, 33-28, second right now. And again, this is Tuesday, okay? But they're in second place right now in the NL East, which is more than what we can ask for, right?
5 games above 500. This is normally a below 500 team last couple seasons. So the fact that we're 5, not 1, not a half, not 2, 5 games above 500, something to be happy about, man. And yeah, they're getting it done. I was concerned the other day. We lost to the Reds maybe, or the Royals, like 11-2, something like that. It was a beatdown a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we had got smoked by, I think it was the Rockies at home.
The Rockies, it might have been. And then, boom, we turn around, and I think it was against this past series. We turn around, we put up like 11 runs ourselves on somebody. So, it sucks to be on the receiving end of that, but it's nice to know that your team can also put that up. and they're finding a groove, man. Arraez is a beast. I think he had like a 4-hit game the other day, like 3 or 4-hit game the other day. I mean, he's racking it up.
Dog, this guy, first of all, he's doing unprecedented shit. The guy's batting 399. 399. There hasn't been somebody hit 400 in over 80 years. Ted Williams in 1941. All right. 1941, dog. Like, come on. And this dude is doing it not by just hitting a bunch of home runs because he only has one on the season. Not because he's in such a protected lineup where they have to throw at him, right, and throw him good pitches. This guy is finding ways to put the ball in play, find little gaps, get himself on bases. On base percentages through the roof. And just in the last 7 days, dog, this guy has 15 hits and 27 at bats. Like, that's over 500 right there. He's only had 10 games so far this entire season, Joel, that he doesn't get a hit. Think about that, dog. Talk about consistency. This dude, right? And a lot of people were kind of questioning being the batting champ from last year. Can you carry that over into another year and do it back to back? He's way like exceeding these expectations by like a lot, dog. A lot. This guy's on pace to do some really historic shit, and the Marlins are feeding off that energy as far as offensively. You know, you mentioned being offensively on it. The first game against the Royals in this series, right? They won in 9-6, but they were down 4-2 in the third, and then bounced back with a quick 4-run inning in the fourth. Bird T got a triple to start it off, and then brought in another one, and then Brian De La Cruz homers at the end of the inning, you know, to bring in Arraez after he got on base again, you know, and Brian hit a bomb to center field, and then boom, once the Marlins got the lead back, it was like, all right, we're not looking back. Let's get to our closer and let's finish this game off. You know, I mentioned Jorge Soler. He has 17 home runs on the season, tied for fourth in the entire majors. Like, this is a dude that we expected to be a big bat, and we were wondering, like, damn, can the Marlins make a trade for a big bat at some point in the season, right? Because it was like, we know that that's a hole that they have, but man, he's been providing a lot of offensive power, him and Brian De La Cruz, because without, you know, Jazz right now in the lineup, you would think that the offense would take a dip. But if anything, it's been pretty consistent, you know. Again, just finding timely hitting and being available, being confident in the hitting is really helping out this Marlins team, man. And even tonight, you know, while we're recording, they're up 5-1 right now on the Royals. Guess who has another hit? Luis Arraez, man. And his average went all the way down to 398. You know, like, this dude is really killing it for us, man. And we're getting a lot of good contributions from guys like Joey Wendell, who came back from injury, right? He's been producing as of late. Jesus Sanchez has been playing well and contributing offensively, getting his hits here and there, just being on base and allowing the guys to bring him in. This Marlins team is very fun right now, man. And I know that all we wanted was for them to make it entertaining. They're doing that, and they're giving us the bonus of winning games, winning series, and continue to build on such a, I don't want to say a young roster, but a very impressionable roster that we have.
No, they're definitely still young in the terms of like their core and their chemistry as a team. You know, they're still trying to figure out their identity, especially, you know, in the post-Mattingly era. And it's looking good, man. It's looking favorable. I mean, if you ever wanted to go to a Marlins game, I mean, now's the time, right? When they're above 500 and you know that there's a good chance that they can pull out some victory, and it's not going to be a boring, you know, 2-1 game. It's going to be, you know, a game where we come back from a 4-2 deficit to win 9-6, you know? So we hear a lot about the bat, what's going on with the offensive scoring. Talk to me a little bit about pitching, though. What's going on in that department?
I'm glad you brought that up, dog, because the guy who's pitching tonight, Jesus Luzardo, has been really on fire for us, man. He has 8 Ks tonight. You know, but him and Edward Cabrera have been really stacking up the wins for us and helping us get good outings from our pitchers, you know, 7 innings, you know, 6 2/3, which last year we weren't even averaging that as a staff, right? As a staff, our starting pitchers were probably 5.5, maybe 6 because of how long Sandy was pitching, you know. And I'm glad I bring up Sandy because even with him struggling, right, in his last 2 starts, 13 innings pitched, he's given up 11 hits, 9 runs, 9 earned, 5 walks, and only 10 strikeouts. You have those other guys that aren't necessarily your quote unquote ace, right? But Jesus Luzardo, Cabrera, I mentioned, even our closer, all of these guys have been really stepping up in Sandy's dip to help the Marlins win games. And, you and I didn't predict us being this type of team where we can win games on the offensive side, right? Win games by 3-4 runs and shit like that while giving up 3 runs, 4 runs if it happens. Just surprising to see that from the Marlins this year. And the pitching has definitely stepped up while Sandy continues to find his way and work his way back to being that all-star caliber that we're used to. This pitching staff, bro, you got to give them a big bounce, a huge amount of credit, because, like I said, they're doing it without their ace. And usually when you have, your ace, you rely on that guy to come through and get the wins. But we've seen Yuri Perez get called up and have 3 good quality starts so far, right, as a rookie. Not easy to do as a kid, and especially on this type of roster where you have proven major league talent, proven veterans, guys who have actually gone out there and won things, been a part of winning cultures. And for him to be a part of this now, like you said, the core is so young, and having a guy like Yuri Perez step up and take some of those innings and take some of those outings has really been a helpful thing. And even Braxton Garrett, man, I got to shout out Braxton Garrett. He's 2-2 on the season so far, but he's been putting up some really good innings, man. And just being that guy where he can say, you know what? Maybe I gave up 3 runs, maybe I gave up 4 runs, but it's the 7th inning and I'm still pitching. And if we do have a lead, I feel comfortable with not giving up anything and putting it into the hands of our bullpen and letting those guys shut it down, man. Like I said,
that's not something that we've known here in the last few seasons. We've had the Sandys, and we've had the Sixtos, and we've had guys, the Pablos, that can come in and start games and get us off to a right start. But how many games did those guys lose at the hands of the bullpen? And it's reassuring now to see that we're adding in that department. We're getting more depth at guys that can save games and not cost us, some crucial ones. So that's always good to hear.
Yeah, you mentioned the saves, man. We have 2 guys right now with 7 and 6 saves respectively. You got Dylan Floro. He has 7 saves on the season so far. AJ Puck still doing his thing, has 6 saves on the season. Between both of them, they have 5 holds. They're amounting to 44 strikeouts. So they're going out there and really being effective, like you said, while only giving up, 4 home runs between them in save opportunities. That's clutch pitching. Your starter needs to be clutch and be good throughout the entire series and throughout his entire start. But when it comes down to winning the game, right, you're relying on your closer. And like I said, Dylan and AJ have really made a difference this year, because that's 13 wins if you think about it. 13 saves, that's 13 wins that the Marlins have added to this schedule so far, and it's a big reason why they're 5 games above 500 and climbing, right? Because like I said, they're able to take advantage of the opponents that they're facing. Yeah, the A's are the worst team in baseball. So what? You still got to go out there and play them 3 games and win those 3 games, right? Same thing with the Royals. Yeah, they're not a great team, but you know what? You still have to go out there and beat those lesser opponents in order to continue to build your standings and your record. And it's definitely paying off for the Marlins, man. Like I said, they're winning tonight. It's 5-1. They're in the middle of the 6th inning. It looks like it's going to be another victory for Jesus Luzardo. Like I said, this Marlins team has definitely been one of the funnest ones that we've had, especially so early in the season. We've had other seasons where, the Marlins kind of catch a little bit of fire and it's too little too late. Nah, these dudes are doing it early and often, which is more than what you and I could have both hoped for this season.
For sure. We've definitely, ever since the whole Jeter move happened with the Marlins, we've had, expectations. I wouldn't say high expectations, but we had just kind of bare minimum expectations. Mm-hmm. None of them were met. So I think we kind of brought that, reeled that back in, and we came into the season with literally 0 expectations. And these guys are playing really, really well, man. So it's literally surpassed all our expectations so far. Just want to see if they can keep it up, as the race for October gets closer.
Absolutely. And you know what? After this series against the Royals, which ends tomorrow, Wednesday, right? By the time you guys are hearing this today, they got to hit the road to face the White Sox and then go up to Seattle and then head over to Washington. So, what's that? A 9-game road trip that's coming up for the Marlins. If they're going to be a team that's in the mix, I don't want to say contending for the wild card spot or in the wild card spot, but just in the mix, you're going to have to win at least 5 of these games on the road, right? And stay 500. And if they can do that, shit, this Marlin season might be a special one, right? Because they can possibly make that wild card. And once you're in the wild card, we know the Marlins, dog, that's where they like to do their damage.
Hey, that's not just the Marlins, bro. That's the South Florida way. Don't let us backdoor. Don't let us backdoor because you're going to regret it. We got 2 ATs in the finals right now, bro. You don't want to make it a wild card playoff baseball team.
That's facts, man. South Florida sports is a buzzing, man. Is a buzzing. So, yeah, make sure you guys are checking out your Marlins. Go watch them in person. Tickets are super cheap and affordable. You can take a whole family of 10 out there for under $100 and have a good time.
I think you can buy Marlins tickets at Costco. Don't quote me on this. I heard it on a podcast recently, but if you got a Costco membership, go ask somebody. I think you can get Marlins tickets at Costco in bulk.
And they have a partnership right now with Burger King too. Like if you buy a meal, you know, you can get a voucher for a buy one get one free type thing. So Marlins are doing everything they can to bring people in. And more importantly, the product on the field is doing the real talking for the Marlins. And that's all we want as Marlins fans and baseball fans. Before we wrap up, Doug, we got to talk about some big news today in the world of golf, which affects both of us, right? Because we watch a lot of golf. I see you wearing your golf shirt, right? Your U.S. Open shirt. I see you. But today there was a big announcement between the LIV and the PGA Tour where they announced that they're going to be merging pretty soon. And this has a lot of implications for both the players on the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour, right? Everything that I've been reading and hearing is that the PGA guys are kind of pissed off about this merger because they feel like they got the short end of the stick, right? The LIV guys got to go and make their big money and go play in shorts and all this stuff. And now all of a sudden it's a merger and we're all, under one umbrella and one big happy family, dog. Tell me, you're more into this golf world than I am. Tell me what your thoughts about this merger and how it's going to have a bigger effect on the game of golf moving forward.
Oh man, this was a doozy, man. What a Tuesday. Tuesdays are usually slow days for us, for everybody. You know what I mean? In general, not a lot happens on a Tuesday. But this Tuesday is going to be a very, very memorable one for years to come. Yeah, man, the last few years, it's been this whole, LIV golf, was it going to be a real thing? Is it actually going to happen? Who's going to be involved? Then it actually came to fruition. Slowly, little by little, some of the most prominent names in the PGA Tour started making their way over. Obviously, that's all driven by money incentives. And, those guys were kind of treated like outcasts and kind of exiled, from the world of the PGA Tour. And now, basically one full year after the LIV Tour is, in existence, we've seen 2 majors this year, with both LIV players and with PGA players. It's been a great narrative as far as, what's going to happen with this league and the friction and the tension. We had, our first Masters winner, was a PGA player. Second Masters winner was a LIV player. And so, it only added more to that narrative and that saga. You know what I mean? The PGA, initially their stance was, this is why, sport washing, the Saudis and what they do. We don't condone it. It's, morally, we don't stand by it. And that's our stance on it. And here we go now on this Tuesday, and we find out that the PGA Tour, who spewed all that hate and said all that stuff, is now in bed with the enemy. I mean, what is going on here?
Is it a money grab? I'm going to ask you straight up. Is it a money grab by the PGA in order to kind of, give a little bit, I don't want to say placate, but like definitely make your guys happier by giving them more incentives or having more money available to pay them more?
So I was listening to the Foreplay Pod. Shout out to the Barstool Boys. That's one of my, my go-to golf news information and stuff like that. And something that they talked about, which was very insightful, was the fact of all the ongoing litigations and, the court rulings and proceedings that are happening behind the scenes between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf. And when the PGA Tour decided to ban players from playing on their tour that had earned tour status simply because they were taking, they were going to play somewhere else and wouldn't consider an alternative or anything like that, then that's when the LIV Tour, fought back. And basically the sentiment or the thought is that they were at a crossroads where they knew their backs were against the wall. And rather than, letting everything be uncovered in the court rulings that weren't going to favor the PGA Tour and were going to cause them to lose everything, they figured, hey, let's cut our losses now, merge with these guys. And at the same time, I can't help but think that there was some money involved there, but, you talk about money. I mean, yeah, you talk, at the beginning of the segment, of course, if I'm a player that walked away from $100 million, to come play for the LIV Tour, only to see that my counterparts that did that are now back as my coworkers. I mean, I'm completely, and utterly in disbelief and upset. I don't care that you raised the purses from $1 million to $3 million and you have these designated events and all this stuff. I could have got paid and still been working here. Like, I mean, you got to be salty, dog. You got to be salty. It's not all about money. I get that. But there's got to be some of these guys that are feeling a little bit salty.
Especially the guys who stood up for the PGA, right? Like, more importantly, mainly Rory, right? Rory had a lot of strong words for this whole thing, and when it was going down, and what the players who were going to LIV were doing and stuff like that, and how the prestige of the PGA was at stake here. So imagine a guy going to bat for the PGA like that so hard on camera, publicly, over and over again, right? Not even Tiger Woods had done that, and now for him to see, this thing go completely 360. Now all these guys are in there, like you said. Now we're co-workers again. It has to suck for dudes like him, man.
No, and the way that it unfolded, I mean, Colin Morikawa tweeted out, hey, I'm just finding out about this like everybody on Twitter. For them to have a player meeting last year after the LIV thing happened that Tiger Woods and Justin Thomas headed, where they discussed it, and then out of that came the designated events and the higher purses and all those things that came out of it. For none of those guys to get a heads up or just a kind of a tap on the shoulder and then find out with the rest of us today, it's got to kind of be a slap in the face. But then on the other side of things, Phil Mickelson is looking like a genius right about now. Brooks Koepka, who, if you saw Full Swing, was, kind of having some buyer's remorse, questioning his decision to come over to the LIV Tour. That guy just won his 5th major title, sitting on a buttload of money, and he's still on the PGA Tour. I mean, the one thing I thought of, and I sent out everybody when I saw that, was the meme of Borat when he's like, King of the Castle, King of the Castle. That's Brooks Koepka and Greg Norman right now, bro. Those guys are the king of the castle right now, man.
Yeah, especially damn, what's the dudes you just named right now? Not Brooks.
Phil?
No, not Phil. The guy who's plugging this, man.
Greg Norman.
Greg Norman. He took a lot of shit. He took a lot of shit for being the face of LIV. He took a lot of shit for having the, I don't want to say the cojones, but definitely having the cojones to try to build the game in a different aspect. And now everything that he's sacrificed has come back to, fruition. And now he's the benefiter of it because he looks like the guy who was leading the charge to make a big change in the game of golf, right? And force these changes upon the PGA, right? Who you and I know they've always had like some type of, I don't want to say snobby, but like, they had a higher value of themselves because they were only game in town. And then boom, here comes the LIV Tour with their new exciting stuff and trying to make it more exciting for fans like you and I, right? And now to see the PGA bend the knee, so to speak, right? It's just funny to me, man, because we mentioned it earlier, money being a factor, it has to be a huge factor.
Of course.
And now we don't hear anything about the sports washing or anything like that.
No, man. I mean, it's just the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of it all is what is just so laugh out loud funny. That all these guys that were, basically like the whole drama, that they're not talking to these guys anymore, because they're on that league and that, they don't agree with their decision. Like, do you owe those guys an apology now? Like, you know what I mean? Should people look at you like that now that you're owned by the Saudis? You know, now the shoes on the other foot. It's just funny to see that, you know. But at the end of the day, yeah, man, you know, money talks, bullshit walks, you know. And here the Saudis got all the money in the world, man. The Saudis needed the PGA, you know, for their streaming and their TV. But the PGA also, you know, needs the LIV Tour, you know, as far as the disruption that they made in golf and all that stuff. So it's ultimately, hopefully, going to grow the game. We're going to get a global game now, not just the PGA Tour in America, but we're going to have a global, you know, game of golf and a global presence. And, you know, hopefully that can only get better and grow. But it's not even official just yet. The pressure that went down today with the Saudi Prince and Jay Monahan, which is the PGA Tour commissioner, when they were asked, you know, hey, where can we get all these details? They said, we're still working them out. Nothing's official just yet, but we just kind of wanted to give you guys all a heads up. Very, very strange, you know, at the end of the day. So there's still more to come out of this story, but definitely sent shockwaves through the sports world today.
For sure. And it's going to be interesting to see where the dust settles, like you were alluding to, right? Because I want to know what the details are going to be, right? Because the devil's always in the details. And when you have a merger of this size, right, with two big companies battling for all these viewerships and all these sponsorships and all this stuff, like the devil is going to be in the details. And I'm interested to see how it really affects not only this season, but golf moving forward. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be a big change. Before we wrap up, bro, I want to give a special shout out to a guy that we've spoken about here a lot. And some of us have said that he can't be a winner. And my dog Victor Hovland went out there and won the Memorial with some clutch play after tying it up. What'd you think about his performance this past weekend? And give a little bit of insight to how this win can probably propel a guy like Victor Hovland to go out there and get his first major.
Well, you know, Victor Hovland, huge congratulations to him with a gritty win. I mean, he was down one. He had to, you know, birdie coming in. I think that I kind of lost track of it because I remember seeing that he didn't birdie the 18th, and I think whoever was right behind him that ultimately lost the tournament or in front of him bogeyed a hole.
Right.
So then it ended up taking that to a playoff, and then he just played it, you know, amazingly, and ended up making a clutch putt in the playoffs to seal the victory at the Memorial. Great tournament. You know, that's Jack's place. You know, you got Jack there. You know, it's great for Victor Hovland to win that one, especially with the year he's been having, you know, the top 10s in the majors and all the great performances. But it took somebody else messing up. You know what I mean? Granted, you know, the door creaked open and he took advantage. He put his foot in there and he walked in and said, no. I was invited, trust me. But that's what it took. And that's not what you want to see for somebody going into, you know, two more majors this season. You want guys that are winning, you know, in a dominating fashion, kind of like a Brooks Koepka, you know what I mean? And Victor, you know, I still think he has it in him. I think he's going to be able to win, you know, majors in his career. But I still think he's missing something. You know, great win for him at the Memorial. But I still won't be picking him as a favorite going into these next two majors to finish out the year.
Me neither, but I just think that for him personally, it probably unlocks something in his mind, right? To say, I can do clutch things in the moment, right? When I need to. And those are things that you need to have. You need to have that belief and that type of conviction when you're playing for a major tournament, right? Against the best in the world, whether it's LIV players or PGA players, because now they're all
it's all the same thing now.
It's all the same thing. All in the same boat, man.
Same, but different.
Exactly, dog. Man, you know me, bro. We could do this all night, dog, and talk up a storm, man. But we both got work to do. We both got more work to do here on the podcast, so we got to push it forward, man.
Wrap this thing up, baby.
Wrap this thing up and tell a friend.
To tell a friend.
Tell one more friend.
To tell everybody that they know.
To tell everybody that they know to follow us on YouTube. Go hit the subscription button, hit the notification button. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. We're dropping a lot of amazing content for you guys, and make sure you guys are subscribed to the Miami Golf Bros, because this guy is definitely going to bring you that insight we just talked about. And until next time, y'all, peace.